give us a sense of the AI ecosystem as you see it.
Okay, so I've said this before. In a layman term, if you look at what is AI, these are algorithms which can ingest humongous amount of data, and by machine learning and by something called deep learning, etc., they can in some limited ways think or appear as if they are thinking. Okay, so you have seen these LLMs, etc., where you ask them a question,
Yeah.
it'll respond. It might hallucinate, but it looks like they are able to respond in a very logical way. But in another way, what is AI is a human brain works because we have five senses. Okay, the eyes, the ears, the touch, the taste, smell, and based on those senses, there is inputs into our brain, and we are able to sense the world. Slowly, we are supposed to take those inputs, and over the years, we become, slightly, educated and maybe wise by the time we become old. But in AI, what happens is there are millions of sensors, which is called IoTs, in a common layman language, and they feed in humongous amount of data from, not only hearing, and seeing, but sensing the world using different things, much beyond human cognition. Okay, like for example, sound. The human being can only hear sound from a particular frequency to another particular frequency. But there is a vast area of sound which the human being cannot hear. But this AI can hear that. Likewise for sound, likewise for taste, likewise for everything else. And when those millions of data points come and hit this AI, the AI is supposed to rapidly acquire more knowledge than a human being can, and it is posited that it will become finally smarter than AI, a human being, and it can even become a super intelligent being, is what is imagined.
Okay. So when I asked you about the ecosystem, I was looking at a more geopolitical kind of a framework. How do you see that?
So yeah, I can do that also for you. From a geopolitical framework, when you look at AI, you firstly have to go to the origins of the internet. Okay, the internet was a creation by DARPA, which is an equivalent of DRDO in the American Defense Ministry. Okay, equivalent of DRDO. So
More
they
efficient.
created, yes, so they created this internet. If you look at the literature, they created this internet because of a problem which they faced in Vietnam, where in South Vietnam, they realized the fight is all about controlling the local population, controlling by means of surveillance and knowing everything about them. And it eventually evolved into the internet which we see today. Now, this also was accompanied by a lot of, like all things, people foresee. And at that time, people foresaw that the era of interconnected computers will lead to reduced sovereignty. And they realized to protect the sovereignty, prepare your population by educating them about a concept called privacy. Privacy is a absolutely artificial concept which was never there before in human history. Okay, a human history throughout its entire evolution, they had no concepts of privacy. But in maybe in the 60s, when the origins of the internet started off, people realized that you have to educate. They talked about privacy. They ensured it came into the education system. Today, the Western populations, it's part of their culture. They're highly
Yeah.
privacy conscious. And when, by the time the global South started getting into privacy debates, they also posited that in tribal societies and less industrialized society, this is a cultural, they don't have a culture of privacy. So we don't have a culture of privacy, and they have a culture of privacy, because of which our data could easily be taken without any alarm being raised, although they tried to posit it as an idea akin to freedom of speech. Freedom of speech and free flowing of data have got nothing to do with each other. So now when you look at China, because of the historical evolution of the Chinese Communist Party, they had a healthy skepticism of Western narratives. And they being a single party democracy, they wanted control over their internet. And they control that internet by multiple means, including, which was, all over the world, they talked about the Great Firewall of China.
Yeah.
Because of which, and they exercise sovereign control. China was all about sovereign control over their space. And when Snowden happened, it was obvious the Chinese were surprised. Okay, there is no doubt in the literature about it, but they were better prepared because they already exercised control. They had created their own equivalent companies. They had restricted Western company access into the Chinese ecosystem. At that time, a lot of our Indians used to say, "Oh, Chinese are going back into the Stone Age, and we are now into the because it's a global village. The Earth is flat.
Yeah.
We are going to arrive." But that obviously did not take place, and because of which the Chinese are the only ones who are challenging the United States today. Why that is so is when you look at the ICT, that is the information communication infrastructure globally, there are 7 layers called on the OSI model, starting off from the chips up to the application layer. Okay, the Chinese have created almost everything except for some part of the chips. Also, they have done, but they have arrived. They have got companies like Huawei, City controlling the network, encryption, everything. We have totally not permitted our industry to come up. We have only concentrated on being a ITS. We said services is the way to go. We did not create products. We did a discrimination against our own products coming into the market. In spite of Atmanirbhar, I can give you n number of examples where Indian product ecosystem has not been allowed to come. In spite of AI coming in, there have been a lot of billionaires who have grown rich out of the ITES industry who claim that they are the people who know this space, and they have openly said that we should allow the big boys in California and we should ride on them. That means we
Yeah,
should
yeah.
ride on platforms which is built on them because they've got unassailable lead. The amount of money needed for it, etc., is humongous, which a poor nation like India cannot afford. But the Chinese have proved them wrong because with DeepSeek, they have shown that although India is supposed to be the superpower as far as the software industry is concerned, they have using American chips. They have created an AI and trained it with almost equivalent to an American model at much lesser cost. This is
So
a
let me
wake-up call.
stop you there. Let
Okay.
me just stop you there. Is that the reason why we've not been able to come up with a deep seek?
I think it is partly one of the reasons, chiefly one of the reasons, because there is no government of India policy which will back up an Indian product. And an
Yeah.
Indian product cannot compete with a Western product when there is no backing, there is no economic, there is no handholding of that product, there is no protection of that product. And, that's the reason why it doesn't happen. In China, they are wise. They know that, they realize that without their products under their sovereign control, they cannot be a player and they back those products up. Likewise in the West, because still 5G, we have realized, we have seen that the West kept on talking about it's a global village and the world is flat. Second,
Yeah.
Huawei started leading in 5G. They said the world is no longer flat. It is not even a global village. Now it is geopolitics. Okay, so there we are. And in spite of their actions, there were still some people in our establishment who kept on talking about a global village. Very surprising.
So what you're telling me is that India is okay. So where do you see India in AI then? In the
So,
current,
let us, give credit where it is due. The government, this present government has a policy to handhold Indian technology. They have taken baby steps, but
yeah,
they have restricted itself to saying we will take baby steps in the field of defense technology. But the defense technology cannot be in isolation to the rest of the nation.
true, yeah.
And this deep seek should be a wake up call for them. And they need to take a de novo look at how do we, in this changing world order, remain relevant. Because in that paper which you have referred to, I've clearly said that if we do not make our current, if we do not take those steps, we will, for the next 5, 6, 7 generations, or maybe perpetually, remain second class citizens of this globe.
Do you think that the way in which industry responded to AI, that we should ride on the backs of the foreign tech majors, did that flow from the fact that their markets are principally there, their all their business is largely from there?
Okay, so in India, all the IT, so-called IT majors are the ITES companies. They are not product companies, and the DNA is
Yeah,
totally different.
yeah,
Okay, So we need to create product companies, and that product company ecosystem will not start off in a vacuum. Because global financial markets promote applications which come on layer 7, okay, which is not in the strategic sphere. Um, it comes in markets, so you have to build up your own deep tech. No other government or financial ecosystem is going to do that. And for this, we need a government venture capital system. Now, this government venture capital system handholding technology exists in all parts of the globe, whether it be capitalist societies or whether it be communist, so-called communist systems like the Chinese,
Yeah. Mm.
except in incredible India. We somehow have not taken that step, although we have said in space there will be a so-called venture capital fund. I do not know how it is being structured. When I look at our innovation ecosystem, I clearly see signs of a license Raj model of innovation ecosystem which has been created.
Mm.
It is not a ecosystem which will foster innovation or foster agility. I have written a book, a whole chapter devoted to what is needed. I have borrowed those concepts from other countries which have done it. We are still part of the Homo sapien race. And if you take those steps, we will also create that innovation ecosystem.